we get started. All right, for you, Aris?
Perfect. Let's start with some of the rules for today's webinar. We will follow the same rules as usual. So this webinar is recorded. The replay will be available after the session. We will send it by email. Please use the Q&A system to ask questions during the presentation. Please avoid to unmute your microphone and feel free to use your camera, but be aware that 96% of additional CO2 emissions. There are some people who send their questions through before, and otherwise you can send them during the webinar. So about today, I'm going to introduce Frederick John. Frederick John is a recognized leader in the decarbonization industry. He has a lot of experience working with different clients in different industries. He has conducted more than 100 carbon footprint assessments. So he has a view on what ESG managers, he has worked with different ESG managers on what is expected from them in this field.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be with you today.
Thank you, Fred. With regards to myself, I work as Chief Compliance Officer at D-Carbonize. I have a background in law and economics, but also in sustainability. And yeah, I'm looking forward to conduct this webinar with you all. A little bit about D-Carbonize. So D-Carbonize, we have created a software that allows companies to measure and reduce their emissions. So in order to achieve this mission, we put at the disposal of our client that converts all the business activity into CO2 equivalent. We are certified by Solar Impulse, and we use two methodologies, the bill and carbon methodology from the ADEME and the greenhouse gas protocol. We are supported by solid investors, and we have delivered our services for more than 40 clients in 12 different countries. So in today's agenda, we are going to start talking a little bit about the environmental context, also about the ESG aspects in general, and then we will see different tips to become a good ESG manager, how to implement ESG reduction strategy, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers.
Right.
So let's start, Fred, maybe to give a little bit of environmental context, because it's always good to remind ourselves why we do what we do. In an ideal world, we will not need ESG managers, but given the environmental context, sadly, we need to have this role in place. And that's why companies are starting to search for this profile.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Iris. And again, as Iris said, it's very important to know why we are here today. Why do we do what we do at D-Carbonize? And well, the simple answer is because there is an increase of greenhouse gas emissions around the world. So I'm pretty sure that you are all familiar with this graph. And because CO2 emissions are increasing, they participate to the global warming, to the change of our climate. And this graph shows what will be the future global warming depending on different scenarios. And I think that these scenarios are very important to consider right now, since we are in the middle of a COP28 in Dubai. So what are these different scenarios? Well, you know, the worst one is we do nothing for our environment, and then we would certainly reach around +5 degrees Celsius. And if we commit to the Paris Agreement, the ones that were decided at the COP28, we should be below 2 degrees Celsius or even below 1.5 degrees Celsius. In between, well, it depends on where we will be, depending on how ambitious we are with our climate regulations. But just for you to know, from today up to get to 1.5 degrees of global warming, we will need to reduce our CO2 emissions by 5% per year on average. Is it a lot? Difficult to say, but what I can tell you is that during COVID-19, when we were experiencing a lot of lockdown, we could not go to restaurants, shopping, we could not travel, and so on. The global GHG emissions only decreased by 5.5%. So it gives you an idea of how big the challenge is and how exciting as well this challenge is. I just wanted to share with you a snapshot of a recent article I read from the FT, and I put the source here if you want to have a look. And well, one of their conclusions was we've got 14% chance of limiting the global warming to the famous 1.5 degrees Celsius, so to the Paris Agreement, which means that it's not over yet. There are still chances to get there, and we definitely need to accelerate our efforts today. I guess this is one of the reasons why we are very proud to participate with the Belgium delegation at COP28 to share what we are seeing with our customers, to share what we are experiencing with them, to share the difficulties, the challenges we are going through to decarbonize our customers, knowing that most of our customers are from the industrial and manufacturing sector. This is definitely one of these sectors where there is a lot of impact to make. So more specifically, if you happen to be there, if you happen to know people who will be there, feel free to join us on December 8th at 5:30 p.m. local time, and we will be talking about circular economy. The title is Measure to be Sure, Optimizing Circular Economy Initiative through Carbon Footprint Assessment. In other words, making sure that the circular economies that you are considering will bring a positive impact in terms of environmental impact, because we've noticed that some circular economy initiative, worse in terms of GHG emissions rather than a non-circular economy initiative. But of course, it may bring other benefits related to social and governance benefits, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So back to the topic of today, ESG managers. ESG managers are facing a lot of pressures today. It is a very, I think it's a very trendy position. It's a very demanding position. And what we are noticing is that these new pressures are coming from stakeholders. And we identified on the market four different pressures. And the first one comes from customers. So that could be direct customers or end users, us. I take the opportunity here to remind everybody that we, as end customers and users, we have an incredible power to incentivize a change, to accelerate the change, because our purchasing decisions have an impact on lots of different value chains up to the most upstream position. So we can't underestimate the power that we have as end users. The other pressure comes from investors. Maybe you had to prepare some reports for shareholders, for investors, or maybe to secure a loan or an investment, and it's coming. It's coming increasingly, and over time, there will be different conditions to access capital based on ESG metrics. Staff. Well, staff, it's you, it's me, it's everybody. We are the level of awareness that we have is increasing, and we can feel that with the companies that we are supporting. We face people that are engaged, motivated, committed, and for some cases they put pressure on the management to accelerate ESG plans. And last but not least, regulations. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you are, I'm sure, all familiar with the famous CSRD that is coming here in January 2024. We'll talk about it, and it's a fantastic accelerator for ESG matters. So because there are new pressures, it forces companies to define a. And one of the things I would like to stress here is that an ESG strategy and ESG efforts should not be seen as cost center. It is an opportunity center. And I will give you four that we notice with our customers. And the first one is it can increase profits. So if you look at the E, which is our cup of tea, measuring and reducing carbon emissions, usually there is a strong correlation between reducing CO2 emissions and improving the company economically wise. It means that if you reduce your energy consumption, if you optimize your processes, if you reduce your waste, it means that you buy less raw materials and so on. These are direct translation into positive economical impact. Better reputation. Lots of companies are investing a lot in ESG matters in order to get a competitive advantage, a better reputation, maybe a label that they are seeking after. So it can certainly help to improve your marketing or reputation. It helps as well to improve your resilience. We generally believe that investing in ESG is to exist tomorrow, is to have a sustainable business, literally, to make sure that your business will survive to the different revolutions that we are going through, and making sure that your activities will still exist in a form or another in the coming years and decades. And staff motivation, it's incredible and very very exciting when we work with customers and we can feel the power from people that they want to make a change. They want to they want to do good when they know where to start and where to go. So certainly it can be a strong motivator for your team. So that was a bit long, but it's very important to understand the context, the pressure, the benefits, and why the ESG manager is such a central position right now within a company. But to be a good ESG managers, there are different elements that we need to be aware of, and among them, there are lots of frameworks and acronyms that can be a bit scary, but that can certainly help you to structure your approach as an ESG manager. And these are some standards and framework that Iris will talk you through.
Indeed. Along the years, people have talked about sustainability in different ways and have used different acronyms. Nowadays, ACG is very popular because it refers to the different aspects a company should focus on in order to conduct their business in a sustainable way. So, for example, when we look at the environment part of the E, the company should be able to conduct their activities in a way that they don't harm the environment, and considering also natural resources consumption like water, energy, the pollution, deforestation, biodiversity. But also they should take into account society, how they engage with society, with different stakeholders, how they include them if they are they include them in a way that encompasses diversity and equity, and the way they interact with all the community. But also about governance. A company with good governance it will be successful in the long term because they know how to manage their processes. They come with a strong, diverse board of directors is based on fair compensation. They have a good program of risk management, and it's all linked to a corporate social responsibility program. So when we talk about ACG, we can look at different frameworks. For example, the one that is very popular at the moment, obviously, is the one that comes with the CSRD. And when we look at it, we see how much information a company need to report on, and how this information comes from different sources, and most importantly, how ACG manager, or the person who is going to report on this, need to have different levels of competencies and skills. For example, when we look at the environmental information, companies will need to report if this is material to their activities on water and marine resources, water consumption and use. In terms of pollution, it will be pollution of air, water, soil, but also when it comes to climate change, it will be CO2 emissions, climate change adaptation and mitigation. So we see that there's a little bit of technical knowledge behind the person reporting on these matters will need to have an understanding of environmental, of sustainability, also when it comes to the biodiversity and ecosystems of circular economy. However, when it comes to social information, the person who have a knowledge on human rights, on employment law, it will be very useful when disclosing information about the working conditions about the employees of the company, but also when assessing the conditions of the employees across the value chains, especially in countries which are more vulnerable, or which are where employees are exposed of a higher risk. Also the part of equal treatment and opportunities for all, how the company engages with affected communities, what impact do they have around them in terms of society, and what is the relationship with the consumers and end users, and what kind of information related to this impact that the company has on them. On the other hand, we have governance information that is related to payment, for example, relationship with suppliers, including payments, but also anti-corruption, bribery. So people who know about finance, lawyers will be able to build a good governance program as well in terms of policies and actions. So when we look at the CSRD ACG reporting, we can see already a lot of skills and competencies that are linked to a person reporting on these matters.
That's a lot of information this year's study is offering to ESG managers. So I suggest we catch a bit of breath here, and why we do that. I would be very curious for you in the audience. Are you impacted by CSRD next year or the year after? Have you started to prepare future reporting or processes to collect data? We would be very curious to know a bit more if you would like to share on the chat. But I guess CSRD is not the only framework, right, Iris? There are other frameworks as well that we can take into account.
Indeed. There are other types of ACG reporting that actually some of them are taken into consideration by the CSRD. Well, the Global Reporting Initiative, it sets a set of guidelines and indicators to cover economic, environmental, and social aspects. There are other reporting like Sustainability Accounting Standard Board that is more as long as it's financially material ACG information. It's more industry-specific standards. And there are some guidelines for the companies to report on those matters. We also have the TCFD that actually the CSRD is following a little bit the structure of the TCFD when it comes to governance, risk management, metrics, targets, and it's more like climate-related financial risks and opportunities. So as we see, there are different types of ACG reporting. Not all of them focus on the same way on the ESG. It depends on each of the report, but we can use them as a framework as well.
Yeah, and I know that we have a global audience here today, but TCFD is also sort of a mother standard in the US with what the SEC is working on and the California climate bills is all about. So it's a very interesting framework to be aware of, to comply with climate regulations.
Indeed, it serves as a source of inspiration to other regulatory frameworks around the world. Then other types of ACG reporting would be like CDP, which serves as a global database which gives companies like a set of questionnaires and recommendation, and it allows them to report on climate change, water security, and deforestation, and to share this information with their stakeholders, suppliers, clients, or other third parties. We also have the UN Global Compact, which is more focused in compliant, or like it's a voluntary framework at the end of the day where companies can report on their compliance with 10 principles related to human rights, labor, environment, anti-corruption. Or we have ISO. With ISO, at the end of the day, it's not specifically a reporting standard, but it provides guidance on social responsibility. So it can be used as a company as part of the ACG reporting strategy.
Last but not least, a very famous one.
Yes, this one, I guess you will be all aware about the B Corp, which is more like a certification. So it has a set of questions that can be used to improve the company's processes and policies, and focus on governance, workers, community, environment, and customers.
Yeah, we know that standard quite well. We are under the process of being certified by B Corp, and hopefully with some good news in the next few weeks.
Indeed. And then now we have a little bit of the context of ACG, environmental, social, and governance. That will be the field broad expertise of an ACG manager. So Fred is going to continue with some tips to become a good ESG manager.
Yeah, thank you very much, Iris. And well, before I start, I have to tell you that all these trips and also all these tips and all these recommendations that we are about to share are based on our experience. It's not from a book, it's not from a standard, it's really based on our experience, what we are seeing with our customers, what we are discussing with them. So again, I don't think there is a one size fits all and there is just a single truth, but this is at least what we are seeing with our customers. So maybe first you wonder, okay, what are some tips or some things I should be aware of to succeed as an ESG manager? So we listed some of them. It's a bit wordy, but don't worry, I will go through it with you. First, the educational background. So we believe that it's needed to have a minimum of expertise from an academic background that is relevant for an ESG manager. And what we saw is that there are different academic background that could be relevant. Obviously, someone who's from a sustainable program would have an advantage, but these programs quite new in universities. So if, like me, you are from the previous generation of degrees, you would like to consider business degrees, business administration, finance, and certainly engineering studies are certainly helpful, especially for the environmental aspects. Now, as Iris mentioned, it's we as an ESG manager, we need to know ESG principles, right? And to guide our research, to guide our training, we can certainly have a look at all these different frameworks, standards, organizations that are facilitating, I think, the work to know what to know about to be a good ESG manager. The third one is very important, to have knowledge that are specific to your industry. Developing an ESG strategy is kind of custom to your industry. Every industry will face specific challenges, specific barriers, and specific aspects to address to be good in their ESG strategy. Most importantly, know your firm. It's really important that as an ESG manager, you know very well your organization, and especially on the ground, especially at the operational level. What are the social impacts that you are making, good and bad? What are the environmental impact that you are making as well, good and bad? Know the structure, how your company is structured in terms of governance. It's very important to be familiar with that. There are some certifications as well you may want to consider. So some of them are from official organizations. So in terms of carbon accounting, you may want to consider bilan carbon training from the French ADEME, or maybe going through the GHG Protocol Academy. But you also have very good training from third-party providers that will give you hands-on tips and tricks. We would certainly recommend to regularly follow those trainings and certifications. Networking is super important. It's super important because ESG matters are not new, but they are not old either, right? And we can see that lots of our customers are getting inspired by discussing with other of our customers or other partners within the value chain. Inspiration, sharing tips and tricks, maybe sharing some processes, best practices, some projects that were successful in one company that could be replicated to another company is very helpful. We can also feel like in the ESG manager community, there is a willingness to help each other. I think that's part of the spirit of ESG. So definitely attend networking sessions, networking events, conferences. It's very important. Now, keep yourself informed as well. ESG matters are a fast evolving field. There are new climates, there are new regulations, there are new frameworks, there are updates. So just keep yourself informed. A good way to do that is by subscribing to newsletters of the organizations that represent the you it's up to date. Develop your analytical skills. Why? Because in the ESG sector now, it's a lot about reporting, and reporting it's a lot about metrics. So even if you are talking about governance or social aspects, you will be asked to report numbers. So better to be familiar with that. Develop a business acumen. So developing an ESG strategy without considering anything about the business of your company may not be successful. It's very important to have tight links between the business aspect of your company, of your activity, and the ESG strategy that you are developing. It must go hand by hand. Otherwise, as an ESG manager, you will reach in the desert with your management, and you may not be heard when you will want to implement action. So really develop a business acumen. Hands-on experience, go on the ground, go on the field, look at the operations, try to be familiar with how people are working, what is your activity, but on the ground, not just behind the screen of a computer. It's really important to get feeling that experience, talk to people. That's where you will get a lot of valuable information. And continuous learning, I think I already mentioned it. It's next to professional certification. You need to stay up to date. You need to keep so it's really really important. So here we listed some we listed here some key success factors for ESG managers. Really, we would recommend ESG manager. And the first is focus on communication. We put here as first, communication is
Sorry
key.
for interrupting you, Fred, but I think at least on my side, your image is frozen and I don't see the next slide. I don't know if it will be the case for anybody else.
Do you? All right. So let me just reshare my screen. Maybe other people can confirm. Can you see my screen now?
No.
Okay. Maybe it's loading, technical issues. Maybe in the audience, can you confirm whether or not you see the screen?
I don't see the screen, Fred. It's whiteboard.
Yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's very weird. Maybe I will optimize the best. Is that better?
I don't see it.
Okay, let's try one more time. Apologies for that.
No yet. It seems that now it's black.
So maybe it's loading. Okay. Well, when it's while it's loading, we can keep listen to the few recommendations I have. So I mentioned that the first point is communication. So communication is really key because as an ESG manager, you will be the central point, a central point of your company, and you will be able to communicate to your management, but to your people as well, and to external stakeholders. So communication is really key. Leadership is really important because you will have to take initiatives, to work on fields that are for some new. So you need to be proactive. You need to train yourself, and to motivate the change. Project management is really key because you will be working with a lot of different projects at the same time from different fields of expertise. So you really need to be able to jungle with these different topics. A convincing attitude is very important because a big part of a ESG manager work is to convince others, convince people when you want to implement a new project, and convince your management when you want to secure budget, when you want to secure resource. So having a convincing attitude is very important. And last but not least, you need to be proactive, curious, and determined, because it's curiosity. I think it's a very important attitude, because a lot is still about discovering what it's not done yet or what it's new in the ESG sector.
You cannot see the screen, so maybe I'm going to share it on my side.
Yeah, try on your side. Yes, please do. And I think it's loaded. Yeah, we can see your screen. You can put it in presenting mode. Okay, so that's the slide I just presented here. The key success factors for an ESG manager. So you will get the recording and feel free to have a look at the words on the slide. But maybe we can move to the challenges that we are experiencing with ESG managers. If you can go to the next slide.
I think it takes a little bit too.
Yeah, the common challenges. So what we are noticing with our customers is the resistance to change. ESG matters are still a bit new for some aspects. So you've got a fear of change, the fear of what's new. So you need to be prepared for that. Lack of resources and budgets. As I mentioned, you need to be able to convince to secure your budget, to secure your resource, to secure a new hiring, for example, to secure a new budget for a new software or to hire a consultant. So that's very important. The lack of involvement from top management. Yeah, how to convince top management that ESG is key, ESG is important for the sustainability of the company. Sometimes we see that ESG is not a business priority. Yes, that may be true for some companies, but in the future, we are convinced that no matter the type of company you are and in which activity you are working in, it will be key. And last but not least, you will have to find the right balance between combining short-term economical, financial performances that your company will be required to meet, and the long-term goals that ESG matters in the end impose. ESG projects are usually for long-term perspectives, where there are still short-term imperatives to meet as a business. So we were wondering if, in the end, after describing the profile of an ESG manager, all the tips and tricks, the requirements, and so on, if the perfect ESG manager does exist. And the conclusion, at least our conclusion, is that the perfect ESG manager does not exist, because what we are requiring in terms of skills, in terms of expertise, in terms of agility, mindset agility from just one single person, it seems too much. And then when you look at other industries, it's not that strange. For example, if you know a bit about marketing, you will not want to ask to a marketer to be good at deploying an SEO strategy, a paid strategy online that is very technical, and at the same time being a good marketer that will design beautiful videos, beautiful pictures. These are two different profiles. So it's not if you feel like you can't keep up with all the topics that ESG is requiring from you, it's normal, because the breadth of expertise and skills is too much for just one person. But what matters is to have around you the right skills, the right people that will help you to complement your own specific profile. And speaking of specific profile, this is just for information, but we realize that depending on the E, the S, and the G, you will need some different background. And this is what we would recommend for the environment. To cover environmental aspects, you will want, obviously, to have environmental and sustainability background. This you can get from trainings and from your studies. To cover the social aspect, you really need to have the human fiber. You need to know a bit about human resources, about marketing, about social sciences. And for governments, it's much more about the financials and the legal compliance element. So just by covering all these different aspects, you can feel that it's a bit too much for just one. That we are speaking with when we are talking to our customer. Well, we identify different profile based on the sector of our customers. So if we are talking about customers active in the service industry, usually the person that is in charge of ESG matters, or at least of environmental matters, would be someone from the finance, marketing, HR department. Whereas if you are in the industry sector, usually we are talking to people from the technical sectors. So someone from the quality, safety, health, and environment position, someone in charge of the facilities, or again, someone from finance, because there are close ties between finance and ESG. We are talking about non-financial reporting elements. So that's normal that they are the finance sector, they are involved in that. And so how to implement a good ESG strategy? Iris will talk you through the different elements that we are considering with our customers for that matter.
Indeed. So a good ESG manager at the end of the day has to be able to implement ESG strategy, and that comes in different steps. So we'll start with stakeholders engagement, both internal and external. Then it can be a materiality assessment can be conducted in single materiality or double materiality, which is a new concept introduced by the CSRD. Then there will be a data collection for in terms of environment, social, and governance data. What do we do with this data, with the metrics and targets? What actions and policies do we want to implement as a company? And then how do we communicate all this strategy, all these actions, and on the strategy as a whole? So, for example, when it comes to stakeholders engagement, we have communication with external stakeholders. That can be, first we have to identify who are the key stakeholders. Then we have to create clear communication channels via feedback forms or questionnaires, to organize stakeholders meetings, to communicate with them via social media or newsletters, or public announcement and press releases, and organize with our internal stakeholders in workshops like climate threat, to get ideas, to keep them engaged, motivated, to train them about ESG matters. When it comes to materiality assessment, as I said, the company can conduct materiality assessment focus on the financial aspect, or a double materiality assessment focus also on the impact assessment. So what is the impact that the company has on the environment and the society? What is the financial impact of the climate change on the business activity? So for example, some of the steps that are to conduct a double materiality assessment, which is the one that is part of the CSRD, is to identify and engage with the stakeholders, also to identify potential relevant sustainability matters. Not all of them are going to be material for your company's activity, but maybe some of them. Then define what impact, risks, and opportunities are related to the sustainability matters, assess the impact, assess the financial risks and opportunities, and then that will give you a materiality overview. And based on that materiality overview, the company can implement a risk management program and can assess the strategic implications for the business. Then when it comes to the second step, the part of the ESG data collection, that will depend on the dimension of ESG that we are talking about. If it's environmental data, of course, choosing the right tool is very important due to technical aspects. We need a tool that allows the conversion of business activity in CO2 equivalents. Then for social data, we can use questionnaires, we can gather information that exists already in the system. For example, information about salaries, disparity between different positions, or how much diversity is there in the board of directors. And we can get that information from HR and account. And in terms of governance, we need also to report and to gather information about the business conduct, payment practices, anti-corruption measures, and how that is reflected in actions and policies in the company. When we have gathered information, accurate information, then we can display metrics on the ESG aspects. We can identify risks and opportunities. We can define realistic targets over a period of time, and also define actions to achieve those targets. and that allow us to monitor progress on a quarterly, on an annual basis. So we have the whole view on ESG matters. Once that we have all that information, it's about to communicate it with our different stakeholders, internally, externally. So many companies choose to display their ESG reports on their company's website, for example, or through social media, newsletter, always trying to avoid any greenwashing, obviously. There has to be information that is accurate, that is real, that it shows realistic targets. Then corporate presentation, annual reports. The CSRD, for example, incorporates the part of the CSRD reporting, the sustainability reporting as part of the annual reports. Collaborative platforms like forum and chats, public announcements and press releases, and of course with engagement from top management that they will discuss with people at the same level. And then if we see, if we look at a successful ESG strategy, we will see some key elements, such as the engagement and the commitment of leadership and top management, a good materiality assessment. Particularly, I always recommend double materiality assessment if possible, obviously, not only for the CSRD, but in general. Then accurate data that is accurate and precise, clear objectives and targets, to integrate ESG into business operation. That's, of course, ESG has to be part of a larger objective, and it has to be a combination of short-term objectives and long-term perspective and objective as well. We have to assess risks and opportunities. We have to focus on transparency and reporting has to be something that we can communicate and report on. There is an important aspect of ESG training and awareness within our organization, but also with third parties like clients, suppliers, other stakeholders, and the part of monitoring and evaluating year after year on a quarterly basis and having this long-term perspective, obviously. So that when it comes from ESG strategy and the key elements for having a successful strategy in place. I lead you to talk about the conclusions.
Yes, indeed. Time for the conclusions. I will try to switch on again my camera so that you can see me for the conclusions. Yes, indeed. So thank you very much, Iris, for that. As for some conclusions, well, the first one is that ESG aspects and reporting are part of a really, really fast evolving field. So you can feel that all these coming regulations, some of them are not yet decided. They will change over time. Standards are changing. Expectations from customers, but they have as well they change. So you need to stay on top of it, and it's not an easy task. As an ESG manager, you occupy a important position. You need a lot of different skills. You know, a lot of different competences and expertise. So please try to get the expertise that you have the less to complement yourself, to complement your profile. You should know everything about ESG because it's such a beast that you need sometimes to get support. ESG strategies require the combination of short-term businesses and long-term requirements from ESG. So that's this tricky balance that you will need to try to find when you make recommendations, when you prepare your strategy to meet business targets, while as well complying with your objectives for ESG. And last but not least, what's new in ESG? It's clearly carbon reduction strategies. You know, for the past 20 years, we're talking about ESG. A lot of companies are reporting about ESG for the past 2 decades. But really, this environmental pillar, this environmental aspect, this carbon reduction strategy, is kind of new for most companies. It's very technical. So you need to be aware of that, and maybe some of you will feel very comfortable and happy with that, and others a bit less. But that's the game changer in the ESG matter at the moment. So this is the end of a series of a webinar that we delivered here for 2024. We recorded 3 of them. The first one is how to measure CO2 emissions for the first time. The second one is about CSRD. And the last one was about how to implement a good carbon reduction strategy. Those webinars are available on our website. Like this one will be available as well on our website. And in 2024, we will come back with a new series of webinars. If you have topics, if you have ideas for subjects you'd like us to address, feel free to send them over via email. And now I guess is the time for you to share maybe comments, reactions, or questions you have for us. We may not have all the answers, but at least we'll do our best to share a bit of our experience and what we see with our customers. I think in the meantime, you prepare your questions. We received some questions via email, so please don't hesitate in the future to share your questions with us up front. And I think there were one or two questions very interesting, right?
Yeah, one was about like, are there specific industries that require ESG managers as opposed to other industries, for example?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I guess the best is when, as an ESG manager, you can make the biggest impact, right? And what we are noticing is that the higher you are in your value chain, the more upstream, I mean, you are in your value chain, usually the more you can make an impact as an ESG manager. Why? Because you are the closest to the raw material production, and today raw material production is usually very polluting, usually quite invasive for social aspects. So definitely it's these are industries, companies where as an ESG manager you can really make an impact, but it doesn't mean that you cannot have an impact. The higher in the value chain, the better in terms of impact. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Fred. And what about the collaboration between an ESG manager and other departments and positions within the organization? I guess that will be super relevant and necessary.
Yes, it is. I guess being an ESG manager it's one of these very rare positions where you need to be aware of everything that is going on in the company. You need to know a lot of people. You need to be transversal in your organization. So communication is really key. What is that they usually organize they get-together sessions or the awareness sessions or a lot of newsletters or communication via the intranet. So we definitely encourage you to communicate a lot and to network within your company, to know the good people, not the good people, but the right people, maybe the decision maker at different levels. It will help you to implement maybe some actions. It will facilitate the project.
Okay, can you give us an example, Fred, of a good ESG strategy that maybe one of our clients has implemented?
Yeah, when I saw that question, so the thing is, our expertise lies into the E of ESG. Of course, we are part of the ESG framework, but we certainly look at the E of ESG, and we've got some very nice success stories that I could talk for hours. But there is one that comes into my mind right now. Is a company that we are supporting, and they produce labels, papers for at an industrial level for very large companies. And when we started with this company, we'll have them with a carbon footprint assessment and a carbon reduction strategy. And right now, the management could really feel the business opportunity of implementing an efficient ESG strategy, meaning that they worked really hard with their suppliers to source better raw materials, better labels, and different ways to organize the distribution, for example, of their labels. And they worked really hard with their operators to avoid, the waste, the production waste, because you have a lot of waste when you work in the label industry. And the bottom line of this is what? It's because they are very committed strategy. They saw the business opportunity and the profits that are on. I'm not saying zero carbon, because we are not very friendly with zero and carbon, but low carbon. And the reality is their customers are seeing real value added of these products, because their customers, they also want to reduce their CO2 emissions. So they would be willing to pay a premium to get products that will help them to get to their objectives, because they also have value to be generated with a low carbon strategy. So that's, I think, a very nice example that is the perfect mixed fusion between ESG and business. A new product that is successful, that is profitable, that is a win-win for the entire value chain, for the suppliers of our customer, for our customer, and for the customers of our customer. And I would definitely encourage you to experience the same success with your own ESG strategy. So thank you very much for your time. If you have questions, we are still available for the next few minutes. Otherwise, you can connect with us via email or on our LinkedIn. Thank you very much for your participation. It's always a pleasure to have you. And well, if we don't see each other before the end of the year, have a nice end of the year, and we'll definitely see you in 2024. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Iris, for your expertise.
Thank you very much, all, and I hope to see you very soon in person or through a webinar.
Thank you. Thank you very much.